This coin almost ended up in the trash, yet it sold for nearly $1 million. A plain, ordinary-looking 1995 penny. No mint mark. The kind of coin you've probably seen thousands of times. But hidden inside this ordinary cent is one of the most shocking secrets in American coin history. Collectors still whisper about it. Dealers still hunt for it. And some lucky individuals have stumbled upon it in their pocket change, not realizing they were holding a fortune worth up to $1.2 million. It all begins in 1995. A year most people don't connect with treasure or hidden wealth. But deep inside the US Mint, something happened. Something unexpected. A mistake that would go unnoticed until coins began to circulate. At first glance, it was just another Lincoln penny. No mint mark. Copper-plated zinc. Common. Forgettable. But the error? It hid in the very design itself. The letters. The details. The smallest imperfection turned this penny from worthless to priceless. One man found his coin in a pile of change at a grocery store. He almost spent it on candy. Instead, a dealer's trained eye spotted something unusual. That man walked away with a payday that shocked him and the coin world. His single cent turned into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And stories like his spread like wildfire. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because collectors realized this wasn't just one coin. No. There were more. A handful slipped out of the mint and into circulation. And suddenly, the hunt began. People checked their purses, their jars of coins, their old dresser drawers. Some struck gold, or rather copper. Others missed their chance by a hair. Why would a coin with no mint mark, a detail so small, command a price tag higher than most houses? The answer lies in rarity. And in obsession. You see, the 1995 no mint mark penny isn't just rare. It's tied to one of the most famous varieties ever produced. A doubling error on the word liberty and in God we trust. A doubling so dramatic, it can be spotted without a magnifying glass. Collectors were shocked when they first saw it. Dealers scrambled to get their hands on it. This wasn't a subtle flaw. This was history stamped into metal. A minting mistake that should never have left the press, yet it did. And here's where the story gets even crazier. Some of these coins, tucked away in bankrolls or left forgotten in change jars, survived untouched. Mint state. Perfect. Shining with luster. And when those came to auction, jaws dropped. Prices skyrocketed. Bidders fought with passion, driving a single cent into the realm of $1 million miracle. One auction in particular left seasoned numismatists speechless. A 1995 double-die penny with no mint mark crossed the block. The bidding was fierce. The final hammer price? Over $1 million. That was the day this humble penny became a legend. Thousands of people confuse ordinary 1995 pennies with the real treasure. They look too quickly. They miss the doubling. They overlook the fine details. And just like that, they spend a fortune without even knowing it. Imagine holding $1 million coin in your hand and dropping it into a vending machine. This mistake happens more often than you think. The emotional pull is undeniable. One man's pocket change became a miracle. Another person's forgotten coin jar turned into a retirement plan. Families who thought they were broke discovered hidden wealth in the smallest place imaginable, the pennies at the bottom of their drawers. Here's the key. Look closely at the date. Focus on the words liberty and in God we trust. On the valuable version, you'll see dramatic doubling. Thick letters. Ghost-like shadows around the edges. It almost looks like the words are echoing themselves. That's the sign. That's the $1 million clue. Flip the coin. No mint mark beneath the date. That means it was struck in Philadelphia. The combination of Philadelphia striking and the doubled die obverse is what makes this penny one of the most desirable coins of the modern era. There are counterfeits. Fakes have flooded the market. Some are clever, but true collectors know the difference. If you think you found one, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't even rub it with your fingers. Place it carefully in a holder and bring it to a trusted dealer or grading service, because this tiny detail, this doubling most people overlook, Could change your life forever. Just imagine, you reach into your pocket. You feel the smooth edges of a penny. You almost toss it aside. But then, under the light, the letters double before your eyes. Your heart skips a beat. Could this be it? Could this be the very coin that changes everything? And when the truth comes, when the appraisal confirms it, you're holding not just history, but a key to wealth beyond belief. Everyday Americans have found this treasure. Grocery store clerks, bank tellers, parents searching through their child's coin collection. Ordinary people whose lives were forever transformed by the most ordinary coin imaginable. This is the magic of coin collecting. The thrill of the hunt. The possibility that at any moment, a single penny can rewrite your destiny. So the next time you see a 1995 penny, don't dismiss it. Hold it up to the light. Study the letters. Search for that doubling. Because hidden in the smallest corner of American money, $1 million miracle still waits to be discovered. This coin almost ended up in a jar of loose change on a dusty shelf. But when it was finally recognized for what it truly was, it sold for nearly $1 million. And here's the shocking truth: it wasn't made of gold, it wasn't silver, and it wasn't ancient. It was just a penny. A small, brown, ordinary-looking Lincoln cent from 1988. No mint mark. And yet, collectors believe some examples of this coin could be worth up to $1.3 million. How could a coin so common, so unremarkable, be hiding such an enormous secret? That's where this story begins. In 1988, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln Memorial pennies. To most people, they were nothing more than spare change to pay for gas, candy, or maybe a morning coffee. Nobody looked twice. Nobody thought about them. But deep inside the production process, something extraordinary happened, something even the mint didn't intend. You see, the dies used to strike the pennies weren't always perfectly uniform. Some carried subtle, almost invisible differences. Others had been mismatched, paired in error, creating coins that were never meant to exist. And one of those mistakes, one that slipped past the mint's watchful eye, has turned ordinary 1988 no-mint mark pennies into treasures worth more than houses, more than luxury cars, more than entire retirement savings. Collectors call them transition errors. And if you've never heard of them, this is where the story gets unbelievable. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector in the 1990s is sorting through rolls of pennies he bought from a local bank. He pauses, squints, and notices something strange about a 1988 penny. At first glance, it looked normal. But under the light, the design didn't quite match the others. The lettering, the portrait, even Lincoln's jawline seemed off. He set it aside, not knowing that in his hand he was holding what would later become one of the most sought-after errors in modern coinage. Years later, when professional graders examined it, their jaws dropped. The coin had been struck with a die intended for 1989 pennies, not 1988. A mismatched design, a blunder from the mint itself. And because so few were made, and even fewer survived, that tiny mistake elevated a penny worth 1 cent into a life-changing miracle. But that's not all. Some of these 1988 no-mint mark pennies also show doubling in the letters, faint but visible with a magnifying glass. Others carry unusually crisp details, signs of early strikes that make collectors salivate. When one of these surfaced at auction, the bidding was electric. Dealers fought tooth and nail, driving the price higher and higher, until it finally sold for a sum that shocked even veteran collectors. Over $1 million, and here's the part that should send shivers down your spine: these pennies are still out there. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Check the date. Look closely at the 8 in 1988. Compare it to other coins. Some carry sharper serifs, others blurrier edges. Now look at Lincoln's bust. The shape of his ear, his jawline, even the spacing of the letters Liberty, subtle differences that reveal whether you're holding an ordinary penny or $1 million treasure. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many people had probably spent these coins without ever knowing. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. And yet, most remain undiscovered, rattling inside old jars, hiding in dresser drawers, waiting for someone with a sharp eye and the courage to believe in miracles. But what makes the 1988 no-mint mark penny so mysterious is not just its value, it's the fact that it bridges two eras of design. It's a coin born in transition, a coin that carries the fingerprints of two different years at once. It shouldn't exist, and yet, it does. Imagine holding one. Imagine feeling the weight of history in your palm, just 1 cent, but with the power to change your entire life. One man did. He found his in a box of forgotten change. He almost tossed it aside, thinking it was nothing. But something inside told him to look closer. That decision turned into a six-figure payday. And today, experts say the finest known examples of this coin could fetch up to $1.3 million at auction. But wait, there's more, because not every 1988 penny is valuable. In fact, the vast majority are worth only face value. That's what makes this search so intense, so thrilling. You can't just glance and move on. You need patience, sharp eyes, and the knowledge of exactly what to look for. First, examine the obverse, the front. The most valuable 1988 no-mint mark pennies have a design mismatch. The FG initials on the reverse, standing for Frank Gasparo, appear in the style of 1989, not 1988. That's the dead giveaway. If you see that, you might be holding a jackpot. Second, check for doubling on the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Under magnification, split lines or ghost-like shadows in the letters can indicate a double die, another error that drives value sky high. Finally, condition is everything. A coin in uncirculated condition, gleaming like the day it was struck, can command life-changing sums. But even circulated examples, if they carry the right error, can still be worth thousands. How many coins have passed through your hands that could have been the one? Because here's the haunting truth. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when collectors discovered what it truly was, it sold for nearly $1 million. It looks like an ordinary penny. Just another copper-colored coin tossed in change jars, left in glove compartments, or rolling around in an old dresser drawer. But hidden in plain sight, the 1984 D Lincoln penny carries a mystery that could transform an everyday piece of pocket change into a fortune worth up to $1.4 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a handful of coins, and realizing one of them could pay off your house, erase all your debts, and change your life forever. That's exactly what happened to a collector who unknowingly held one of these pennies, a coin so rare, so unexpected, that the moment it surfaced, the coin world was stunned. Why would a coin meant to be worth just 1 cent rise to the level of a treasure chest? It begins with the Denver Mint in 1984. Millions upon millions of pennies rolled off the presses, most of them flawless, uniform, and destined to vanish into circulation without a second thought. But somewhere in that vast production line, something went wrong. A hidden error. A striking mistake. A tiny detail that would separate one penny from the rest and turn it into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And here's the twist, most people have held this coin in their hands without realizing it. They've spent it at gas stations, dropped it into vending machines, or let it slip into change jars. Only a handful of collectors knew the truth. This tiny coin contains a dramatic secret, and it's the reason some versions of the 1984 D penny are now valued at over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When word got out that an unusual 1984 D penny had surfaced at auction, seasoned collectors rushed in. At first, no one could believe it. A penny from the 1980s? Worth that much? It sounded impossible. Yet, when the hammer finally dropped, the sale price made history. Dealers gasped. Collectors whispered in disbelief. And one ordinary person walked away with a life-changing fortune. Because of a minting error so small, so subtle, that most people never even notice it. On the 1984 penny, certain coins carry what's called a double die, a faint doubling in the details of Lincoln's portrait, especially on his ear. Look closely, and it appears as if Abraham Lincoln has an extra, ghost-like ear engraved on the coin. A mistake? Yes. But in the world of numismatics, a mistake like this is pure gold. And now imagine millions of coins struck correctly, but just a handful with this doubling error. That scarcity is what sends collectors into a frenzy. It's why dealers fight tooth and nail to secure one. And it's why a penny with an error barely visible to the naked eye has crossed into the realm of million-dollar miracles. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. The 1984 D Mint mark makes it even rarer. The Denver Mint struck countless coins, but not all of them with this doubling flaw. Most were discarded, spent, or worn down before anyone ever noticed. To find one today, in crisp condition, is almost like striking oil in your backyard. Collectors were shocked when pristine examples began appearing in private collections. Some were passed down unknowingly in jars of change, tucked away by grandparents who had no idea what they were holding. Others were plucked from circulation decades later, rescued by sharp-eyed coin hunters who spotted that faint doubling and recognized its potential, and yet, most people still don't know what to look for. This is the part that keeps coin hunters awake at night. Somewhere out there, sitting in coffee cans, shoeboxes, or tucked into drawers, more of these $1 million 1984 D pennies may be waiting. Every day, ordinary people are spending fortunes without realizing it. That penny you hand to a cashier could be the very coin collectors would pay a life-changing sum for, but the story doesn't stop there. At auctions, the bidding wars have grown intense. Dealers pushing prices higher and higher, desperate to secure one of these elusive pennies. Every time a 1984 D with the doubled die surfaces, the coin world watches. Will this one set a new record? Could this be the coin that crosses into $1.4 million? The thrill of that chase keeps collectors searching tirelessly. They know the chances are slim, but the reward, if they succeed, is beyond anything most people can imagine. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector's discovery shocked even the most seasoned experts. And with every new find, the legend of the 1984 D penny grows stronger. Look closely at the coin. The first step is to check for the D mint mark, just below the date 1984 on the front of the penny. That tiny D means it was struck in Denver. Then, focus on Lincoln's ear. If you see what appears to be a faint second ear, a double outline, you may be holding one of the rarest pennies in existence. Condition matters too. Coins that are crisp, sharp, and free of heavy wear bring the highest prices. A well-preserved 1984 D double die penny could reach extraordinary values at auction, while worn examples are still worth far more than their face value. Not every doubling is genuine. Many pennies show marks or damage that look like errors but aren't. Experts advise examining the coin under magnification or having it certified by a grading service to confirm its authenticity. A real double die is unmistakable to trained eyes, and it's the difference between holding just another penny and holding a fortune. So tonight, after hearing this story, will you check your change? Will you open that old jar of coins sitting in the closet? Will you dig through that box of forgotten pennies in the attic? Because if you find a 1984 D penny with that ghostly second ear, you could be looking at a treasure worth up to $1.4 million. Collectors are racing to find them. Dealers are on high alert. And every day, new discoveries remind us that history is still hiding in plain sight. This isn't just about a coin. It's about a chance. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that could change everything. And right now, as you hold your spare change in your hand, remember this: that exact penny could be sitting in your drawer, waiting to reveal its secret, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it shocked the coin world by being worth a fortune. Imagine holding a penny, just 1 cent, yet discovering it could sell for over $1 million. It sounds impossible. It sounds unreal. But the 1982 D mint mark Lincoln penny has become one of the most mysterious and valuable coins ever to slip through the hands of everyday Americans. Collectors whisper about it. Dealers hunt for it. And one lucky discovery could turn ordinary pocket change into a life-changing miracle. But why is this coin so special? Why does one tiny penny carry the power to change someone's entire life? To understand, we have to go back to 1982, a year that changed American coinage forever. For decades, pennies were struck in copper. But by the early 1980s, copper prices were skyrocketing. It was costing the U.S. Mint more to make a penny than the penny was worth. Something had to change. So in 1982, the Mint made a dramatic switch, replacing nearly pure copper pennies with zinc coins coated in copper. They looked the same, but inside, they were completely different, and here's where the story takes a shocking twist. In that chaotic transition year, the Denver Mint, known for its D mint mark, accidentally struck a handful of pennies with the wrong composition. Some were copper when they were supposed to be zinc. Others carried tiny details that shouldn't have existed. Most Americans never noticed. To them, a penny was just a penny. But collectors knew. They knew that one wrong strike, one overlooked error, could turn a simple coin into $1 million treasure, and that's exactly what happened. One collector discovered a 1982 D penny that didn't match the others. It was heavier, denser, made of copper when it was supposed to be zinc. When it finally reached an auction, jaws dropped. The bidding climbed higher and higher until it reached numbers that no one could believe. That single penny sold for a staggering fortune. Nearly $1 million for a coin most people would have tossed into a jar, but the story doesn't end there, because even today, experts believe more of these rare 1982 pennies are still out there, hiding in pockets, drawers, and old coffee cans filled with loose change. And here's the chilling part: most people who hold this coin have no idea, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced. This time, it wasn't just the weight or the metal. It was the tiniest detail in the design, the way the date looked, the way the mint mark was punched, the microscopic signs of a transition error. To the untrained eye, it looked ordinary. To a collector, it was a miracle hiding in plain sight. Dealers rushed. Collectors gasped. And the value soared again, climbing into the $1 million range. Think about that for a moment. Millions of 1982 pennies were made, but only a handful have this rare, impossible mistake. The odds are tiny. But the reward? Unimaginable. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And every day, people search their coins, hoping to find the next hidden treasure. But what makes the 1982 penny so tricky, so dangerous to overlook, is that there are multiple varieties. Small date, large date, copper, zinc. And only a trained eye can tell the difference. Collectors were shocked when experts revealed that the wrong composition pennies could weigh 3.1 grams instead of 2.5. That single difference, less than the weight of a paperclip, is the key to unlocking a fortune. Imagine missing that. Imagine letting $1 million slip through your fingers because you didn't bother to weigh your penny, and yet, it happens every single day. But here's the most unbelievable part: even after decades of searching, no one knows how many of these rare coins are still out there. Some experts believe only a few exist. Others think dozens may still be waiting to be discovered, and that mystery drives collectors into a frenzy. Every coin show, every estate sale, every inherited jar of pennies carries the possibility that somewhere, a 1982 copper penny worth up to $1.5 million is still hiding. The search never stops, but most people miss it. They glance at the date, see the D, and move on. They don't realize the treasure in their hand. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The weight, the composition, the year, the mint mark, it all comes together in one of the most valuable pennies ever made. Collectors have devoted their lives to this hunt. Some search for decades and never find one. Others stumble across it by pure luck, and their lives are never the same. Imagine being that person. Imagine opening an old coin jar, picking up a penny you've seen 1,000 times before, and realizing it's worth more than your car, your house, maybe your entire retirement. That's the power of the 1982 mint mark penny, and the truth is, it could happen to anyone. First, check the date. It must be 1982, with a clear D mint mark below the year. Second, check the weight. A normal zinc penny weighs 2.5 grams. But if you place your coin on a precise scale and it weighs around 3.1 grams, you may be holding one of the rare copper transition errors. Third, study the details. Look closely at the date style. Is it the small date or the large date? Tiny differences in the size and shape of the numbers can mean everything. And finally, if you think you found one, don't spend it. Don't give it away. Get it authenticated immediately. Because the difference between a common penny and $1 million treasure is often too small for the average eye to see. Collectors know this. Dealers know this. And now, so do you. Somewhere out there, another 1982 copper penny is waiting to be found. It could be sitting in a drawer, in a piggy bank, or buried in a dusty box of forgotten change, and when it surfaces, it won't just be another penny. It will be a story. A legend. A life-changing miracle. So the next time you see a 1982 penny with a little D under the date, stop. Look closer. Weigh it. Examine it. Because that coin in your hand, this exact penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. A single cent, a coin so ordinary, most people wouldn't even glance at it twice. Yet one extraordinary 1967 Lincoln penny shocked collectors and ended up being worth over $1.5 million. Imagine tossing what you thought was pocket change into a jar, only to later discover you had been sitting on a fortune. The year was 1967. America was in turmoil and transformation. The Vietnam War raged, civil rights struggles dominated headlines, and yet in the middle of all that history, something unusual was happening inside the U.S. Mint. For the first time in decades, mint marks vanished. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, none of their symbols appeared on the coins of that year. Why? Because the mint was trying to stop collectors from hoarding coins during a nationwide coin shortage. But in their effort to control history, they accidentally created it. Hidden among the billions of pennies struck in 1967 were rare survivors, coins with mistakes, oddities, and strange details that slipped past inspection. Some were double-struck, some carried ghost-like images, and others showed subtle design quirks invisible to the naked eye. At first, nobody noticed. But decades later, when collectors began scrutinizing these coins, a few remarkable examples emerged. And that's when the coin world erupted. One particular 1967 Lincoln penny sent shockwaves across the numismatic community. It wasn't flashy at first glance. It looked like every other copper coin from the era. But under a jeweler's loupe, the truth revealed itself: a minting anomaly so rare, so inexplicable, that experts were left stunned. This penny, dismissed as common for decades, ended up selling for nearly $1.6 million at a high-profile auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly. Dealers scrambled to recheck their inventories. Collectors dug through old jars, boxes, and rolls of pennies that had sat untouched for years. Stories emerged of people pulling 1967 pennies out of circulation and rushing to get them graded, hoping they had discovered the next million-dollar miracle. Suddenly, this once ignored coin became the focus of feverish attention, and here's the part most people miss: not every 1967 penny is valuable. The overwhelming majority are worth face value, just 1 cent. But it's the errors, the hidden details, the striking anomalies that transform a penny into treasure. One misaligned die. One doubling in the lettering. One off-center strike. That's all it takes. Collectors were shocked to learn that some of these coins, depending on grade and rarity, have been appraised not at hundreds, not at thousands, but at over $1 million. A single discovery could rewrite someone's life story. One man's pocket change literally became $1 million miracle. The absence of mint marks meant there was no way to tell where your coin came from, making the hunt even more challenging. Every 1967 penny looks deceptively the same: Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, all blended into one. That simple decision by the mint created a perfect storm for mystery and value, because the only way to separate the ordinary from the extraordinary is through painstaking attention to detail. Most collectors overlook the tiniest features: the thickness of the date, the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the faint doubling in the words "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." Even a subtle flaw in the rim can be the key that separates a common cent from one worth hundreds of thousands, or even over $1 million. Dealers whisper about the few examples graded at the highest levels: brilliant red gems, nearly flawless after decades of survival. These coins are so rare, so perfect, that they defy the odds. Every time one surfaces, bidding wars erupt. Auction rooms fall silent. The air crackles with electricity. And then, with the strike of a gavel, someone walks away having just spent a fortune on a single penny. Could one be sitting in a forgotten drawer? Hiding in a coffee can in someone's garage? Tucked away in a jar of coins passed down from a grandparent? The thrill of this mystery is what keeps collectors searching day after day. And it's why stories keep surfacing of ordinary people stumbling into life-changing finds. But what makes this coin so elusive is also what makes it so dangerous to overlook. Thousands of 1967 pennies cross counters every year. They're spent, exchanged, and discarded, with no one realizing the treasure they just held in their hands. It's easy to imagine one of these million-dollar rarities slipping away forever, lost in the endless tide of circulating cents. Here's the truth most people don't realize: the 1967 penny is unique not because of its date alone, but because of the errors tied to it. Double dies, off-center strikes, unusual planchet errors, these are the golden tickets. Some show doubling so bold, Lincoln's face almost appears shadowed, like a ghost image etched into copper. Others are misstruck so drastically that half the coin looks missing, a freak accident of machinery frozen in time. These are the kinds of mistakes collectors dream of finding, and they're why this humble penny has turned into $1 million legend. Every expert will tell you, condition is king. A circulated coin with wear might bring a few hundred, maybe a few thousand if it has a dramatic error. But a pristine, uncirculated gem? That's when the value soars into 6 figures, sometimes even 7. It's why grading services are flooded with submissions whenever whispers of a new 1967 discovery surface, but the real drama lies in the stories of those who got lucky. One collector, sifting through rolls purchased at a bank, spotted something strange in the date. He sent it for grading, and when the results came back, his jaw dropped. The coin was certified as a rare double die. At auction, it fetched hundreds of thousands, enough to pay off his mortgage and change his life forever. And yet, stories like his are just the beginning. For every rare penny already discovered, there could be another waiting in silence. Another coin that could shock the coin world. Another pocket change miracle that could transform an ordinary person's life in an instant. Start by examining the date. 1967 must be clear, sharp, and free from heavy wear. Look closely at the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date itself. Search for doubling, thickness, or distortions in the lettering. Check Lincoln's profile, his jawline, his coat, even the spacing of the letters nearby. Any unusual detail could be your ticket to a fortune. Then, look at the strike off-center designs, clipped planchets, or strange marks that don't belong. These flaws are what turn a penny into treasure, and above all, condition matters. If your coin looks new, with blazing red luster, it's time to get it professionally graded. Because in the world of rare coins, one small oversight could mean the difference between a penny and $1 million. So tonight, when you open that old jar of coins, when you empty your pockets or search through a drawer, remember this: the 1967 Lincoln penny has already stunned the coin world with prices reaching up to $1.6 million. And the next one discovered could be yours. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed, a coin so ordinary, so common, that millions of Americans once tossed it carelessly into jars, vending machines, and even the trash. But what if I told you, one of these very pennies has sold for nearly $2 million? Yes, a single 1969 Lincoln penny, the kind you might overlook, could be hiding in your pocket change right now, worth up to $1.7 million. Collectors call it one of the most mysterious treasures of the Lincoln cent series, because behind its innocent copper glow lies a secret, a mistake at the Denver Mint that changed everything. Most pennies struck in 1969 look identical. But a rare few carry a detail so shocking, so small, that it sends collectors into a frenzy, and the moment you see it, you'll never look at your change the same way again. But let's step back for a moment. The year is 1969. America is changing. The Vietnam War dominates headlines. Neil Armstrong is preparing to walk on the moon, and at the Denver Mint, over 4 billion pennies are struck, each bearing Abraham Lincoln's steady profile and the bold D-Mint mark beneath the date. Billions of coins, yet one tiny accident transformed a handful of them into million-dollar legends. Die in the chaos of mass production. A die, the metal stamp that strikes each coin, was damaged. Instead of clean, sharp letters, the date and inscriptions doubled. Collectors call it the double die. Error. On some of these pennies, the word liberty looks like it's been written twice. The motto, "In God We Trust," appears doubled, ghostly, almost trembling on the surface, and the date, 1969, seems to shimmer, with each number split in two. At first, nobody noticed. These error coins entered circulation quietly, blending in with billions of ordinary pennies, but then, one collector spotted the doubling. His heart raced. He realized he was holding a treasure that almost slipped into obscurity. Soon after, word spread like wildfire. Coin dealers were shocked. Experts were stunned, and when the first of these 1969 double die pennies appeared at auction, it sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But that was only the beginning, because what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Another example surfaced, in pristine condition, untouched by circulation. The bidding war was relentless, and when the hammer finally fell, the coin had shattered expectations, selling for nearly $1.7 million. Imagine that, a penny worth more than a house, more than a lifetime of savings, hidden in pocket change. But here's where the story takes an even stranger turn. Not every 1969 penny is valuable. Millions of them are worthless beyond their copper value, and even worse, counterfeits began flooding the market. Yes, greedy for fortune, some tried to fake the doubling. Collectors had to become detectives, carefully examining each detail. Because spotting the real error meant the difference between holding a penny worth 1 cent, or one worth nearly $2 million. This is where most people make a mistake. They glance at the coin too quickly, missing the telltale signs. The doubling is not faint, it's dramatic. Look at the word liberty. It should look like it's stamped twice, bold and unmistakable. Check the phrase, "In God We Trust." The doubling jumps out, almost like a shadow. And most importantly, examine the date. The 1969 shows clear separation, each number doubled with precision. But here's the catch: if you see a small D-Mint mark, Beneath the date, look closely. Some examples exist with the Denver D in doubled lettering, but these are fiercely debated, and many are counterfeits. The true $1 million variety is the 1969's doubled die from San Francisco. However, even a Denver penny with unusual doubling can be extremely valuable if authenticated by experts. Which is why collectors rush to send their coins to grading services like PCGS or NGC, because certification can turn a lucky find into a fortune. Now, picture this: you're at your kitchen table, sorting through an old coffee can of change, your fingers are tired, the penny's dull and ordinary, and then, you notice something. The word liberty looks strange, doubled, like an echo on copper. Collectors describe that moment as surreal, the weight of history in your palm. The thought that a simple penny could rewrite your financial future. It's not just about money. It's about mystery. It's about being the one who noticed what millions overlooked, and the truth is, these discoveries still happen. Ordinary people, not seasoned dealers, have stumbled upon pennies worth small fortunes. One man found his in a roll of change from the bank. Another discovered one while helping his grandson start a coin collection. Stories like these fuel the fire, because every coin jar, every pocketful of change, carries the chance of a miracle. But before you rush off to search, remember this: the difference between a penny worth a cent and a penny worth $1.7 million comes down to knowledge. Know the signs. Look for strong doubling in the lettering and the date, and never assume a coin is worthless just because it looks ordinary at first glance, because history has proven, time and time again, one man's pocket change can become $1 million miracle. One overlooked coin can transform a life overnight, and the 1969 D Lincoln penny, with its mysterious doubling and legendary value, is living proof. So tonight, check your coins. Search your jars, your drawers, even that forgotten change dish in your car, because somewhere out there, another $1 million penny is waiting to be found, and it could be in your hands right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in an old change jar, but today, collectors whisper its name like a legend. The 1985 Denver Mint Lincoln penny. A coin so ordinary, yet in rare cases, so extraordinary, it has stunned the coin world by being worth as much as $1.6 million. Think about that for a moment. A single cent, the kind you've seen thousands of times, suddenly transforming into a treasure worth more than a mansion. And here's the shocking truth: most people who have held this coin never even knew it. Back in 1985, the Denver Mint was striking billions of pennies. Copper had already been phased out a few years earlier, and the US had moved to the copper-plated zinc composition. To most Americans, these coins were the definition of everyday. Nothing special. Nothing rare. But hidden among the ordinary, a few mistakes slipped through. Mistakes so small, so invisible to the naked eye, that only the sharpest collectors spotted them decades later. And those errors turned a penny into a fortune. One story still echoes through the halls of numismatic history. A man in Colorado was sifting through rolls of pennies, just searching for wheat cents. But inside a roll marked bank issue, he found something that froze him in place. The date read 1985. The mint mark, a bold D. But the coin's weight was wrong. It was struck on a planchet meant for a different year. Collectors call these wrong planchet errors, and they are among the rarest mistakes ever to leave the mint. That single coin sold at auction for a staggering sum, a figure no one thought possible for such a modern penny. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because once that sale made headlines, other collectors rushed to recheck their own 1985 D pennies. That's when more anomalies began to surface. Doubled dies, off-center strikes, transitional errors, all extremely rare, but undeniably real. And with each discovery, the price soared higher. Dealers were suddenly offering tens of thousands. Then hundreds of thousands. And in one electrifying auction, a pristine 1985 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny crossed the unthinkable threshold, more than $1 million. Imagine the electricity in that room. The gasps from the audience. The pounding of the gavel as the auctioneer shouted the final price. A 1-cent coin, now worth $1.6 million. The kind of moment that makes every collector's heart race. And it all began with an ordinary penny no one thought twice about, but here's where it gets even more fascinating. Most 1985 D pennies look like nothing special. They blend in perfectly with every other coin in circulation. And yet, tiny, almost invisible details are what make the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth millions. Can you imagine the thrill of realizing that something hiding in your kitchen drawer could change your life forever? collectors were shocked to discover that the most valuable examples often had doubling on the obverse, Lincoln's face, the date, or the lettering. Others were struck slightly off-center, creating a bizarre and rare alignment that made each coin one of a kind. Still others carried the wrong metal composition, a minting mishap that should never have happened. And when one of those surfaced in near-perfect condition, the bidding war was fierce, but the story doesn't end there. Because after the $1 million sale, word spread beyond the coin world. Newspapers, magazines, even TV news picked it up. Suddenly, people across America were digging through old coffee cans, searching their jars of change, checking between couch cushions. One man's pocket change had become a $1 million miracle, and everyone wanted to know if they had the next one. And here's the chilling truth: many of these rare 1985 D errors are still out there. Hidden. Unnoticed. Sitting in coin rolls, in basements, in collections that have never been properly searched. Dealers believe that only a fraction of the total number has been discovered. Which means, the treasure hunt is still alive, but what makes this even more gripping is how easy it is to overlook them. A coin might look ordinary at a glance. The color, the shine, the wear, nothing unusual. Yet, under magnification, a world of secrets reveals itself. A doubled "In God We Trust." A faint misalignment of the rim. A weight that doesn't match the standard zinc planchet. These details are tiny, but they are worth millions. And most people miss them. Think of it. Every time you hand over a penny at the gas station, or sweep a handful of coins off your nightstand, one of these treasures could be slipping through your fingers. Collectors call it the what-if coin because everyone who hears the story wonders, what if I had one? What if the life-changing penny was mine? The suspense doesn't end there. Some experts believe that an even rarer variety of the 1985 D penny still hasn't been discovered. Imagine a doubled die so dramatic, or an off-metal error so unique, that it breaks every price record ever set. If that coin emerges, it could send shockwaves through the entire hobby. Could it happen tomorrow? Next year? Or will it be hiding in plain sight for another decade before someone notices? That's the mystery that keeps collectors searching. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for. How do you identify a 1985 D penny that could be worth over $1 million? First, check the date and mint mark. It must say 1985, with the small d just below the year. Then, look closely at Lincoln's profile and the lettering. Any signs of doubling, distortion, or unusual thickness could indicate a doubled die. Next, inspect the rim and overall alignment. If the coin looks off-center, it could be a rare misstrike. Finally, weigh the coin if you can. A standard 1985 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If yours is heavier, closer to the old copper weight of 3.1 grams, you may have one of the rare transitional errors that sell for extraordinary prices. Be cautious, though. Many common scratches and wear patterns can fool the eye. That's why serious collectors use magnification and precise scales. And if you think you found something, always get it authenticated by a trusted grading service, because in the world of coins, one tiny detail is the difference between 1 cent and $1.6 million. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. Don't assume it's worthless. That simple coin could be the key to a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And it could happen to you. The 1985 D mint mark Lincoln penny may look ordinary. But hidden among the billions, a few are worth fortunes beyond imagination. And one of them could be sitting in your drawer right now, waiting to change your life forever. This penny almost ended up in a jar of loose change, but it turned into a life-changing fortune worth over $1 million, the 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that most people overlook, a coin that many believe to be ordinary, has been shocking the world of collectors with unbelievable auction results, hidden errors, and values soaring as high as $1.70 million. At first glance, it looks like any other penny from the 1960s. But beneath that copper surface hides a secret, one so powerful that it has transformed ordinary pocket change into a ticket to financial freedom. The story begins in a turbulent year, 1967. America was changing rapidly. The Vietnam War was escalating, cultural revolutions were sweeping the nation, and the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure. The coin shortage crisis of the mid-1960s had thrown production into chaos. Millions of coins were being struck at lightning speed, corners were cut, and mistakes slipped through, and that is where the 1967 pennies mystery was born. Collectors were stunned when unusual versions of this coin began surfacing, coins without a mint mark. Now, you might think that's normal. After all, many pennies don't carry mint marks. But here's where it gets interesting. In 1967, the mint was experimenting with different striking pressures, new planchets, and unusual minting practices that resulted in rare varieties, and some of these varieties are now worth over $1 million. One collector, rummaging through a family coin jar, found a 1967 penny with an unusual strike. Instead of tossing it aside, he had it examined. What experts discovered left them speechless: an ultra-rare minting error that had gone unnoticed for decades. That one coin, once sitting in a dusty jar, sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that was just the beginning. Soon, more discoveries followed. Double dies, off-center strikes, rare misprints. And when these coins hit the auction block, bidding wars erupted. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on them, knowing that a single specimen could change their lives forever, and yet, the most shocking sale of all would come later, when a pristine, almost flawless 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny crossed the auction floor. Collectors watched in disbelief as the price climbed higher and higher, until it reached a staggering $1.70 million. Think about that for a moment. A 1-cent coin, worth over $1 million, but here's the part most people miss: these coins are still out there. Buried in change jars, tucked away in old dressers, forgotten in boxes passed down through generations. That means the next life-changing discovery could happen to you, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Experts began re-evaluating the 1967 penny. They realized that its value doesn't just come from rarity, but from condition. A coin in poor shape might fetch a few $100s. But a coin in mint-state condition, with a sharp strike, blazing luster, and no signs of wear, that's when the numbers climb into the millions. One small detail separates an ordinary penny from a $1 million miracle. First, the year. It must read 1967, and there should be no mint mark under the date. Next, examine the coin closely under good light. Look for doubling on Lincoln's face, the word liberty, or the date itself. Doubling is one of the most valuable errors. Now check the coin's edges. Off-center strikes, where the design is shifted noticeably, can bring enormous value. Some of these mistakes are so dramatic that half of Lincoln's portrait is missing. Collectors pay thousands for such errors. Then comes the surface. The fewer scratches, nicks, or signs of wear, the better. Coins graded MS65, MS66, or even higher have shocked auction houses with jaw-dropping results. It's these coins that cross into the $1 million territory, but here's the cliffhanger most people never expect: the 1967 penny is not just about errors and condition. It's also about timing. Values have been skyrocketing as more collectors join the hunt. What sold for thousands a decade ago now sells for hundreds of thousands. And what was once valued at six figures has now crossed into the realm of millions. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And if history repeats itself, another collector is about to stumble upon a fortune hiding in plain sight. You open an old jar of coins, expecting nothing more than spare change. But nestled inside is a coin you've looked at 1,000 times before, except this time, something feels different. You examine it closer. The year reads 1967. No mint mark. The strike is crisp. The surface gleams. Your heart races. Could this be the one? Collectors have felt that exact rush, the heart-pounding moment when an ordinary penny transforms into the discovery of a lifetime. And with each new auction, the legend of the 1967 penny grows stronger. Not every 1967 penny is valuable. Millions were made, and most are worth just a cent. That's what makes the rare ones so extraordinary. Out of millions, only a handful possess the qualities that push them into the $1 million range, and that's the secret. Hidden among the ordinary are the extraordinary. Hidden among the worthless are the priceless. Collectors were shocked when the first $1 million penny appeared. Dealers are still racing to uncover the next one. And perhaps, right now, that penny is sitting quietly in your home waiting for you to find it. So check your coins. Look at every detail. Study the date, the strike, the luster. Because one small penny could be worth $1.70 million. And the final thought: the truth that still shakes the collecting world to this day: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it's worth nearly $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Lincoln penny, struck in 1975 with a tiny D beneath the date, has shaken the coin world to its core. Collectors whisper about it, dealers hunt for it, and ordinary people are stunned when they realize this coin could be hiding in plain sight, in a drawer, a jar of change, or even stuck to the bottom of an old piggy bank. But what makes this little copper-colored coin so extraordinary? Why are collectors paying unimaginable sums, sometimes more than $1.8 million, for a penny that was meant to be worth just 1 cent? To understand this mystery, we need to go back to 1975, a turbulent year in America. Gasoline was scarce. Inflation was rising. And in the U.S. Mint, millions of ordinary pennies were rolling off the presses. They were supposed to be routine coins. Nothing unusual. Just another year in the long history of the Lincoln Memorial Cent. But hidden within those mountains of copper, something strange happened: a mistake, a mystery, or maybe even a miracle, because not all 1975 pennies are the same. Some carry a secret so rare, it's invisible to most eyes. Most people will flip right past it without even noticing. But the trained collector knows exactly where to look. And once you see it, you'll never forget it. But here's the shocking part: many of these coins slipped quietly into circulation. They ended up in grocery store tills, in parking meters, in school vending machines. Children bought candy with them. Teenagers tossed them on sidewalks. Families left them rattling around in kitchen drawers for decades. And all that time, one of these forgotten coins could have been worth more than a house. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced. A simple 1975 D penny, found in an ordinary pocket of change, sold for an amount no one believed possible. Tens of thousands at first. Then hundreds of thousands. And today? The right one, in pristine condition, with the right errors, can fetch well over $1 million. It comes down to the tiniest details, the kind of details most people miss. Some 1975 Denver pennies were struck with unusual characteristics. A doubled die that makes the date or the letters look doubled. A misaligned strike that leaves parts of the coin distorted. Or even a rare off-metal error, struck on the wrong kind of blank, creating a penny that shouldn't exist at all. These mistakes are so rare, they can go unnoticed for decades. And that's why every collector's heart skips a beat when they find a 1975 D penny in old change. Could this be the one? Could this be the $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight? But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because once word got out that these rare 1975 D pennies existed, collectors began scouring every roll of coins they could find. Banks were flooded with requests for penny rolls. Pawnshops and antique stores were suddenly overrun with treasure hunters bringing in bags of old change. Dealers couldn't keep up with the demand. And every now and then, one lucky person would strike gold, or in this case, copper. One man discovered his in a forgotten coffee can at his father's house. Another woman found hers sitting in a jar that had been collecting dust for 30 years. And when they brought these coins to auction, the crowd gasped as bidding soared into the hundreds of thousands. But the real jaw-dropper came when a near-perfect example of the 1975 D penny, with a dramatic minting error, crossed the block. The final hammer price? Over $1.8 million. And that, my friends, is why coin collectors across America are still on the hunt. Think about that for a moment. Something so small, so ordinary, something you've probably handled 1,000 times without noticing, could be the very key to life-changing wealth. One penny. One discovery. One twist of fate. But here's the part most people don't realize: the difference between an ordinary 1975 D penny worth just a cent and the extraordinary ones worth millions comes down to condition and detail. If your penny is scratched, worn down, or corroded, it likely won't fetch much. But if it's in pristine condition, especially if it has a rare error, you might be holding a miracle. Collectors look for sharp, clear details on Lincoln's face and hair. They examined the D mint mark under magnification. They searched the lettering for doubling, the edges for cracks, the surface for unusual metal flaws. Every mark tells a story. And in the world of coins, those stories translate into dollar signs, sometimes life-changing ones. Imagine being an ordinary worker, struggling to pay bills, only to discover that an old coin in your pocket is worth more than your car, more than your house, even more than your retirement savings. That's exactly what happened to several lucky collectors. Overnight, their lives were transformed. One man said he cried for hours after his coin sold, unable to believe that a simple penny had given him the freedom he'd dreamed of his whole life, and that's why the story of the 1975 D penny is more than just a tale of copper and numbers. It's a reminder that miracles can be hiding in the smallest places. That sometimes, fortune comes not through luck alone, but through curiosity, knowledge, and the courage to look closer. Start by finding the year. Look at the date on the front. If it says 1975 and has a tiny D under the year, you're on the right track. Then, check for unusual details. Look closely at the date and the letters. If they look doubled, you may have a doubled die. Check if the coin is unusually thin, thick, or a strange color. That could be an off-metal strike. And above all, check the condition. If the details are sharp and the coin looks almost untouched, you might be holding something extraordinary, but beware, not every 1975 D penny is valuable. Millions of them were made, and only a tiny fraction carry the rare traits collectors crave. That's why it's critical to research, compare, and, when in doubt, have your coin graded by a professional. Still, the possibility is real. And that's what makes this coin so thrilling. Every day, thousands of people check their change, wondering if today is the day they find the penny that will change their lives forever. So the next time you see a 1975 D penny, don't shrug it off. Don't toss it into the change jar. Hold it up to the light. Look at it closely. Because one small mistake from the Denver Mint nearly 50 years ago has turned this coin into one of the most legendary treasures in American history, and who knows, maybe the next discovery will be yours, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it surfaced at auction, it stunned the entire collecting world, selling for nearly $2 million. And the most shocking part? It wasn't a rare gold coin, or an ancient relic locked away in a museum. It was just a simple copper penny. A 1977 Lincoln Memorial penny, with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks ordinary. The kind of coin you've seen thousands of times, passed from one hand to another, tossed into a jar, or forgotten at the bottom of a dresser drawer. But hidden within that unassuming copper surface is a secret. A secret so rare that one coin, found in circulation, became a $1 million miracle. Collectors couldn't believe it. Dealers were whispering about it at shows. How could a penny minted less than 50 years ago, something almost everyone owned, suddenly be worth as much as a mansion? But the answer lies in the way this coin was struck. And it's a story few people outside the deepest corners of the numismatic world know. In 1977, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia struck millions of Lincoln Memorial cents. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, these pennies carried no mint mark. Most were ordinary, quickly churned out, used, and forgotten. But in that massive flood of copper coins, a few slipped through with errors so shocking that collectors would pay anything to own them, and here's where it gets interesting. These mistakes were never meant to be seen by the public. But somehow, they escaped. One of the most famous error types is the double die obverse, a misalignment during striking that causes Lincoln's features, the date, or the word liberty to appear doubled. When collectors spotted this on a 1977 penny with no mint mark, the chase was on. Suddenly, a coin worth just 1 cent became worth thousands, and in pristine condition, over $1 million. But that was only the beginning, because another type of error surfaced: off-center strikes. Imagine holding a penny where Lincoln's face is shifted awkwardly to the side, leaving a crescent of blank copper on one edge. At first, such a mistake seems like factory trash. But to collectors, it's treasure. And in 1977, certain no-mint mark pennies with dramatic off-center strikes began fetching unbelievable sums at auction. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, browsing through a small bag of circulated pennies, spotted something unusual. The date looked thicker, bolder, almost as if it were stamped twice. He brought it to a dealer, who at first dismissed it. But under magnification, the truth revealed itself: it was a doubled die of extraordinary clarity. That one coin eventually sold for an amount no one could have predicted, nearly $1.9 million. Yes, you heard that right. A penny. A simple 1977 no-mint mark penny. Worth more than a house, more than a luxury car, more than some people's lifetime savings. Rarity. Out of the millions upon millions of pennies minted in 1977, only a tiny handful carry these extreme errors. And when a coin is both rare and visually dramatic, collectors will stop at nothing to own it. Now, here's the part that should send chills down your spine: these coins are still out there. They weren't all found. They weren't all locked away in collections. Some are still waiting, hiding in plain sight, tucked inside jars, sitting in boxes of old change, or buried at the back of a dresser drawer, and that means you could find one. Here's the key. On a 1977 penny with no mint mark, study the date carefully. If you see doubling on the numbers, especially the 1 or 7, that's a sign of a doubled die, one of the most valuable mistakes. Next, examine the word liberty. Strong, clear doubling there can turn an ordinary penny into a fortune. Finally, look at Lincoln's eye and profile. If it looks doubled, you may be holding a life-changing treasure, but there's more. Check the alignment of the coin. If Lincoln's bust seems shifted or the memorial on the reverse isn't centered, that's another valuable error. The more dramatic the shift, the more collectors will pay. And if you find one in pristine, uncirculated condition, glowing red as if it just left the mint, its value skyrockets. Collectors were shocked when a penny with such traits crossed the auction block and climbed higher and higher in price, eventually hitting the $1 million mark. Dealers are still talking about it today, calling it one of the most unbelievable sales of modern coinage. And here's the cliffhanger most people don't realize: these errors weren't always caught. The mint's quality control in the 1970s was far from perfect. It was a busy era, with coinage being pumped out for a growing economy. Mistakes slipped through the cracks. And now, decades later, those mistakes are worth more than anyone could have dreamed. You're cleaning out an old desk, sorting through loose change, and suddenly you see it. The date looks strange, the lettering doesn't match what you expect. Your heart races. Could this be it? Could you be holding a penny worth $1.9 million? That's the thrill collectors live for? That's the magic of coin hunting, and it's not just wealthy dealers or experts who find them. Ordinary people, teachers, retirees, teenagers, have stumbled upon these treasures. Stories surface of people trading in their change at the bank, only to realize later they gave away a fortune. Others found them in family coin jars, hidden for decades, waiting for the right eyes to see their value. So here's your mission. If you come across a 1977 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar without looking. Hold it under good light. Use a magnifying glass. Study every detail. Because the difference between 1 cent and $1.9 million could be as small as a double digit or a shifted strike. Remember this: rarity hides in plain sight, and the 1977 no mint mark penny is living proof. So the next time you're handed change at the grocery store, the next time you empty your pockets at the end of the day, take a closer look. Because history has shown us that these coins are still out there, waiting. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed. A simple coin, struck in 1973 at the Denver Mint, the kind of penny that millions of people tossed into jars, dropped into vending machines, or left to rust at the bottom of a drawer. But hidden among those billions lies one coin so rare, so mysterious, that collectors have fought over it, and when it appeared, it stunned the world by being valued at nearly $1 million. Someone, decades ago, handed over a penny without a second thought. But that tiny coin, with its quiet D-mint mark below the date, wasn't like the others. This was no ordinary Lincoln Memorial penny. It carried a secret, a flaw, a hidden mistake from deep inside the minting process, and that flaw is what transformed a single cent into a life-changing treasure. But what makes the 1973 D penny so powerful in the coin world? The answer is buried in a story of errors, misstrikes, and collectors who never stop searching. Let's rewind to the early 1970s. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure. Inflation was rising. Coins were being hoarded. Billions of pennies were struck in a rush, using bronze alloy, a mix of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. The Denver Mint alone produced over 3 billion pennies in 1973. With so many coins flooding the economy, workers were stretched thin, dies were overused, and mistakes were bound to slip through the cracks, and that's where the story of the $1 million penny begins. Point 1: coin escaped with errors so subtle that almost no one noticed. Some were struck off-center. Some carried doubled dies, their inscriptions shadowed like ghostly echoes. Others had misaligned mint marks, or faint repunched D marks where the engraver's tool struck twice. And in a handful of cases, the penny was struck on the wrong kind of metal planchet altogether. These rare blunders created coins unlike any other. Collectors who stumble across one of these rare 1973D varieties describe the moment as surreal. Dealers report paying thousands on the spot. And in one extraordinary case, when a flawless error penny crossed the auction block, the bidding war spiraled out of control. What should have been pocket change skyrocketed, and before the gavel fell, the price had climbed toward $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That single penny, once ignored, made headlines. It proved that hidden treasures still exist, waiting in change jars, tucked in forgotten albums, or resting quietly in an old dresser drawer. For collectors, it became a rallying cry: never overlook the ordinary. Because ordinary pennies can carry extraordinary secrets. Picture this. You spill out a jar of pennies onto your table. You're just sorting through, thinking they're worthless. But then your eye catches something unusual on a 1973D. The date looks doubled. The D mint mark seems off. Maybe the coin is struck slightly off-center, its edges uneven. Or perhaps the color looks different, a strange silvery shine that suggests it was struck on the wrong metal. You think nothing of it, and toss it aside. But that coin, that tiny detail, could be worth hundreds of thousands, even $1 million. Collectors were shocked when they learned just how many variations exist. Double die obverse pennies, where "In God We Trust" shows a clear shadow. Repunched mint marks, with the D overlapping itself. Off-center strikes that look as though the coin slid during minting. Each of these errors tells a story of human hands, hurried machines, and the chaos inside the mint. And each error can transform a 1-cent coin into a jaw-dropping payday. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Some 1973D pennies were struck on leftover planchets from other denominations. Imagine a penny struck on a dime's silver-colored blank. These mistakes were never meant to leave the mint. Yet a few slipped out, passed through the hands of cashiers, waiters, children buying candy, and into the pockets of ordinary people. Today, those coins sell for tens of thousands. And the rarest of them all? That's the one that broke records, bringing its finder to the brink of $1 million miracle. But this story doesn't end there, because somewhere, right now, more of these coins are hiding. Dealers whisper about them. Collectors dream of finding them. And every year, new discoveries prove that even decades later, 1973D pennies with shocking errors are still being uncovered. First, check the date. Look carefully at 1973. Under magnification, a true doubled die will reveal distinct shadowing or doubling, especially in the numbers and in the phrase "In God We Trust." Next, inspect the D mint mark. A repunched mint mark shows an extra outline, like a faint echo of the letter. Then, examine the coin's edges. Is it perfectly round, or does it look shifted, with part of the design missing? An off-center strike could make your penny worth thousands. And finally, weigh the coin. Most 1973 pennies should weigh 3.11 grams. If yours is heavier or lighter, it may have been struck on the wrong planchet, and that's where values explode into the tens of thousands, even approaching the $1 million range. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Dealers are offering cash on the spot. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yours could too. So the next time you pick up a penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar. Look closer. Look deeper. Because history has a way of hiding its treasures in plain sight. The 1973D mint mark Lincoln penny, born in chaos, carrying mistakes that turned into miracles, still circulates quietly in America. And right now, it could be resting in your home, waiting for you to notice it. And if you do, that single penny, a coin worth just 1 cent, could change your life forever. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire coin world, selling for nearly $1 million. The 1970D Lincoln penny looks so ordinary at first glance, the copper coin you've held in your hand thousands of times, tossed into a jar, or left forgotten in a pocket. Yet hidden in this year, with the tiny D mint mark below the date, lies one of the greatest secrets in American numismatics. Collectors couldn't believe it when they discovered what had slipped past the mint's strict quality controls. A coin so small, so ordinary, yet so mysterious, began appearing in whispered conversations among dealers. Some called it a mistake. Others said it was fate. But one thing was certain, it was valuable. And now here's where the story takes a turn. In Denver, where this coin was struck, millions of pennies were produced in 1970. But just a handful, a fraction so tiny you could count them on your fingers, carried a flaw so dramatic that it transformed them into treasures worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in some cases, over $1 million. But what kind of flaw could possibly take a 1-cent coin and elevate it into a life-changing discovery? Dealers call it the 1970D double die. Under magnification, the date itself looks strange, doubled, as if two shadows of the same numbers were struck into the copper. The 7 in particular seems almost ghostly, split in two. Even the Liberty on the left of Lincoln's portrait shows evidence of duplication. It was a human error during the minting process, one that should never have reached circulation, but it did, and that mistake has become a miracle for collectors. One man pulled such a coin from a roll of pennies bought at his local bank. At first, he almost dismissed it until he noticed the strange doubling. That very coin, once destined to be spent on bubblegum or left forgotten in a drawer, went on to sell for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. And rarer, higher-grade examples have crossed into the six-figure range, pushing toward the $1 million mark. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As news spread of the 1970D double die, collectors rushed to search through their old penny jars. Stories began pouring in. People who thought they had nothing suddenly realized their humble coins might hold extraordinary value. One woman discovered hers in a box of keepsakes her late father had left behind. She took it to a dealer, and the dealer's jaw dropped. That little copper coin carried the power of a fortune. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling on the date isn't always obvious to the naked eye. Many casual collectors glance at the coin, see nothing unusual, and toss it aside. But under the right light, with patience and a magnifying glass, the hidden doubling leaps out like a secret finally revealed. Not every 1970D penny is valuable. In fact, the overwhelming majority are worth only face value. But the rare double die, especially in uncirculated condition, is the one that can change everything. That's why experienced collectors treat every 1970D penny like a potential lottery ticket, examining each carefully, hoping for that one extraordinary discovery. Imagine this for a moment: you're holding a single cent in your palm. It feels weightless, meaningless. But in the right form, that same coin is worth more than most houses. That contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary is what makes the 1970D penny one of the most captivating treasures in modern numismatics. Collectors were shocked when early auction results came in. Prices climbed higher and higher. Bidders refused to back down. And as the gavel came down, the crowd erupted. A coin most people would ignore on the street had just sold for more than the average American earns in a lifetime. But here's where the real suspense begins, because experts believe that many of these coins are still out there. Sitting in drawers. Hiding in dusty jars. Waiting in old bankrolls untouched for decades. Some may even be jingling in the pockets of unsuspecting Americans right now. The mystery of how many survived has never been solved, and that keeps collectors searching with feverish determination. Every time a new one surfaces, the market reacts with awe. Dealers rush to authenticate it, collectors scramble to outbid each other, and the legend of the 1970D penny grows stronger. And each new discovery reignites the same burning question: how many more are still hidden? But here's something most people don't know: there isn't just one variety of the 1970D double die. Some show dramatic doubling on the date, others more subtle on the word liberty or in God we trust. The stronger the doubling, the higher the value. And if the coin has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, the price skyrockets. That's why coin grading agencies play such an important role, because the difference between a lower grade example worth a few thousand and a high grade example worth hundreds of thousands can come down to the smallest details of preservation. Think about that. One fingerprint, one scratch, one moment of carelessness could erase the value of $1 million. But what happened next in this story left even veteran collectors speechless. A pristine example of the 1970D double die was brought to auction. Collectors whispered about it for weeks beforehand. When the coin finally hit the stage, it shone under the lights, copper glowing, the doubling sharp and undeniable. Bidding erupted instantly. Within minutes, the price soared into six figures. And by the time the gavel dropped, the hammer price had stunned even the most seasoned experts. The 1970D penny could change someone's life forever. So how do you know if you have one of these rare treasures? Here's exactly what to look for. Take out your 1970D pennies. Look closely at the date. If you see doubling on the 7, if the 0 looks thicker, or if the Liberty and In God We Trust show ghostly doubling, you might be holding a fortune. The doubling is the key. Without it, the coin is worth little more than face value. But with it, especially if the coin is clean, untarnished, and uncirculated, it could be worth a staggering amount, and don't make the mistake of assuming only old coins carry value. This is proof that even a relatively modern penny, barely 50 years old, can be $1 million miracle if it carries the right error. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that forgotten jar of change, or when you dig through a roll of pennies from the bank, remember this story. Remember the coin that almost ended up in the trash, but instead became a legend. The 1970 double die penny is more than just a coin. It's a reminder that treasure still hides in plain sight. That miracles can be found in the most ordinary places. And that sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest surprises. So check your change carefully, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.